Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Week 14 preview. Every single one of you listening to this should be in the playoffs, or maybe you have a consolation bracket, or it's Dynasty. I don't know, and there's different reasons to be listening now, but it's time. A lot of things change now. Brandon, by the way, is not here today. He had a really long drive yesterday from New Hampshire, so I gave him the day off, let him relax a little bit. A lot less stress. He had his kid, with him and everything, so it's okay. Let's give him the day off. Let him prep for the playoffs as well, and I'll run you through this week preview. Now, it is going to be a little bit different, just a little bit, because things change once we get to playoff season, right? What's one of the biggest changes is that now things such as who's hot or who's a long-term prospect isn't exactly the most important thing. Now it's about schedule. Scheduling becomes the most important thing. Who has the most games, who has easier schedules, because at the end of the day, one of the things that I like to think about in the playoffs is that it's not so much about thinking about the finals. Like, sure, think about the finals. That'd be nice. But if you don't take care of this week, if you don't take care of winning each and every week on your way to the finals, you're not going to get to the finals. And so think less about who has a good game in 2 weeks or a good schedule in 2 weeks, and more about who has a good schedule right now, and maybe this next week if you're ahead, right? That's how you're thinking. You're thinking in the very much now, and that's a big difference from the way that we normally think about things. And while, yes, you don't necessarily want to forget about playoffs, for example, or finals rather, for me, for example, I know that Florida has a terrible schedule in the finals week for me, and I hold both Florida goalies. That sucks. So I do need to think about that. I do need to think, okay, you know what? Maybe it's worth picking up a goaltender here this week or next week and just prepping for that just in case, just to hedge. On top of that, Florida, of course, has a really difficult schedule as well going forward these next 2 weeks. So that also plays into it. So I think the way we're going to do this for this episode in particular to really prep you for the playoffs and just get into what's most important is I'm actually going to start with the schedule. So I'm going to walk you through the schedule, look at who has really more in depth than usual. Usually we just give you the 3 off nights and who has a good schedule. I want to get a little bit more in depth this time, actually kind of go almost team by team and give you a little bit of a breakdown of what I like, how I might take advantage of their scheduling, and on top of that, who I'd avoid potentially, because that's it. Like, when you look at ads and you look at drop candidates, pretty much everything is dictated by the schedule. Sure, there's performance, but more than anything at this point, you're really looking at schedule as a means of like, okay, this player might not be doing as hot as this other player, but if it's even, I'm going to take the player with 4 games to keep versus the player with just 2 games, right? Or maybe even 3 games. That's where you start to make those distinctions. And on top of that, there's who plays early in the week versus who plays late in the week. So let's get into the schedule part of this, because that ends up being the most important part going into the playoffs to really prep you and really give you that victory. So I'm going to switch over here. If you're watching on video, if you're not, I'm just going to describe it if you're listening on the podcast. But I'm going to actually walk through the off-night tool. This is 0gamesabovereplacement.com. If you don't know what this is, I would go to fantasyhockeypodcast.com/tools, and there you'll see the off-night tool. And that off-night tool will give you what I'm looking at here. So let's walk through just what this, if you've never seen this before, I'm going to walk you through what's happening here on this screen. So you see every day of the week and you see the different teams, and it gives you their current games. So how many games they have this week, how many games they have next week, and then you also have a current score. So the score, what it takes into account is whether they have an off night or not, whether they're playing tired versus a rested team, whether both teams are tired, or whether they're rested against a tired team, which gives them extra points. So just starting off here, you can see that Boston has easily the best schedule of the week. They have 3 Buffalo games, and then 1 Pittsburgh game at the end on a Sunday, and that is against a tired and traveling Philadelphia team or Pittsburgh team. So Boston has a really good schedule this week, and on top of that, they get 2 off nights. Then we see Montreal, who also has 2 off nights, 2 Edmonton games, 2 Calgary games, one of those being a back-to-back. The worst schedule of the week easily ends up being Buffalo, who has 3 Boston games and a game against the Rangers, who are also fighting for a playoff spot and are going to come firing on all cylinders. And they are away, so that also doesn't help. So I would definitely stay away from Buffalo players in terms of ad drops this week. I don't like Buffalo players. I dropped Dahlin and Risto, even though I like them and I like that they're getting a lot of minutes. It's just not worth it versus Boston. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I know that, for example, Casey Middlestat was one of the highest picked up players of the last few days. I do like Middlestat. I like what he's doing. Do I like him against Boston? Hell no. I would not be betting my playoffs on Casey Middlestat, even though I love that triple eligibility. I still don't buy it versus Boston. I don't like it. So I would be dropping those types of guys. Even Sam Reinhart is another example of someone that, while he's been good, I just don't want it against Boston. I'd rather gamble in other places. Then we have the Rangers, who have a very important schedule coming up. And honestly, look, they have the 2 off nights. I think really those top 3 teams, it's Boston and Buffalo, who have really standout hard schedules. Toronto also plays Winnipeg 3 times. That's the other interesting thing about the schedule this week and going into the playoffs in general. A lot of teams are having series against other teams. So we see, for example, Boston plays Buffalo 3 times this week and 3 times next week. So Boston has the best schedule of these next 2 weeks, but they only play Buffalo, essentially. They have that one game against Pittsburgh in the middle, and that's it. And then we look at other teams as well. You have Toronto playing Winnipeg 3 times. You've got Pittsburgh playing Jersey 3 times. Also a fantastic schedule, but Pittsburgh only has 1 off night. And then you have, let's see, who else? The Sharks have 2. The Dallas Stars have only the Detroit Red Wings to play against. Now, the thing about the Dallas Stars, even though that is sexy, they don't have any off nights. The Nashville Predators only play the Chicago Blackhawks. And then you've got Florida playing Columbus twice, Carolina twice. A lot of series here. Colorado plays only St. Louis, although we'll see if Colorado plays their games. You've got Edmonton only playing Montreal, even though they've only got 2 games. Washington only playing the Isles, even though Washington only has 2 games. So a lot of series are going on. And if you take a look at next week, kind of the same thing tends to happen. Minnesota only plays St. Louis next week. The Kings only play the Ducks next week. Let me see if there's other series here, because there's a few just situations, even if there's not other series. So Philly only plays the Devils. The Rangers play Buffalo and the Isles twice. So those are the only series, but even then you have a lot of back-to-backs against the same team. So you've got Arizona playing San Jose, and then Vegas. Vegas plays Colorado, Arizona. So a lot of these kind of series matchups, and so you do need to think about matchups as well as how many games there are. So taking a look at that, like I said, Pittsburgh, great schedule with the Devils. Columbus has a terrible schedule this week. They play Florida in a back-to-back at the beginning of the week, and then they have 2 Tampa Bay games, and both of them are away. Just not good situation for Columbus. It makes me like guys like Patrick Laine a lot less, like Oliver Bjorkstrand a lot less. A lot of those guys that you might be thinking, oh, well, I might gamble on them because they've been dropped. I dropped Oliver Bjorkstrand. I also dropped Patrick Laine a long time ago. But this was a big reason why, honestly, is because I looked at the playoffs, and not only did they have, they have 4 games, great for them, but it's a really, really tough schedule for Columbus. And they haven't been great at scoring goals recently, and Florida's been pretty good defensively, and Tampa, of course, is Tampa with Vasilevsky in net. So I definitely don't like Columbus' schedule. I'd be avoiding them, to be honest. I'd obviously be avoiding Buffalo. I'd also be avoiding the Devils, even though I know, guys like Jack Hughes, who's getting a lot of minutes, look kind of sexy right now. I'd be avoiding him because he's against Pittsburgh 3 times. I don't like that very much. And then they have Philly at the end of the week, and they're tired versus a rested Philadelphia Flyer team, and they're the Devils are traveling to Philadelphia, so not a lot to be had there. Winnipeg is kind of an interesting one. Toronto does let in a lot of goals. I don't like that they're the middle of the week. I think it removes a lot of opportunity. I'll get into that in a second about why I think picking up a team like Winnipeg, where you lose a Monday and Tuesday start, and you get Wednesday, Friday, Saturday starts, kind of hurts you because you only get that middle week. I think there's a lot better plays there. So Winnipeg is a team that I'd pay attention to maybe in the middle of the week, but I wouldn't be paying attention to here as a early week grab. Let's take a look here. I really like the Dallas Stars this week, if you can fit them in. They have 4 Detroit games. One of them is a back-to-back early in the week. I love that for the Dallas Stars against Detroit, who at times to be fair, has been a little bit stingy. It's hard to make out who this Detroit team is. I do like the Nashville Predators a bit. They have 2 off nights against Chicago, gives you the opportunity to play things Saturday, Sunday. They play Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the Nashville Predators. Detroit Red Wings, honestly, not a terrible play. I'll talk about them a little bit. I do like guys like Adam Erne, and Jakub Vrana potentially if he's available. The Stars are stingy as well, but that being said, there is opportunity there in those 4 games, even though they have no off nights. The Carolina Hurricanes have a really tough schedule, 2 against Tampa, 2 against Florida, but it doesn't really seem to matter when it comes down to the Carolina Hurricanes. So I do like opportunity there. I think there's something to be had in Carolina. They do have 4 games, 2 early games. So again, I'll get into why those 2 early games matter. Looking down at the rest of the schedule, we get into teams that have only 3 games, and I don't really love anything else. I mean, Colorado against St. Louis is interesting for the Colorado side. I don't like that for the St. Louis side. If I'm looking at the Hoffmans and whatnot, those guys in Sanford, I don't like those depth St. Louis plays against Colorado. I think there's much better opportunity elsewhere. I think you can get a lot more starts. Because the thing with this week, so let's get into that part of it. And of course, you're going to try to avoid Edmonton late in the week because they have a Monday and Wednesday game, Wednesday being an off night. So Edmonton, while yes, you want to move off of depth Edmonton players, you don't necessarily need to do it immediately. You can do that later in the week because they have a Monday and Wednesday game. Anaheim players move off of entirely. They have a Tuesday and Saturday matchup, not off nights. They play the Kings and then the Vegas Golden Knights. They do have a good schedule next week, but I would really stay away from Ducks players early in this week. Maybe if you're planning for next week and you're already really ahead, then it's worth it, but otherwise, not so much. And then Washington has 2 late week games, and they don't really have even that great of a schedule next week. So for Washington players like, Kuznetsov is available in my league. There might be a few other depth pieces from the Washington Capitals that are available. I'm not so huge on the Caps going into these next 2 weeks, especially this week against a stingy Isles team on non-off night days. It's going to be hard to fit them in. So let's go into what I was talking about from a scheduling perspective of what you can take advantage of this week and get a lot more starts than how you normally would play it. So normally you're thinking on the whole week, they have 4 starts, so what can I do? That's not necessarily how I'd think about this week. I'd think about it a little bit differently. I'd think about playing this in parts. I'd look at maybe Monday through Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. Think about those 3 things, or break it up however you want, but there is opportunity in this game week to get a lot of starts out of 3 ads, right? Where normally 1 ad would maybe get you, 4 starts or whatever. There's a lot of opportunity to add on to that. So for example, you have Columbus, Tampa, Detroit, Dallas, Florida, Carolina, all play Monday and Tuesday. So what you can do is you can pick up players from those teams from, obviously I'm trying to avoid Columbus, so I'm looking more at Tampa. And the reason this is important too is that you can also approach this from a kind of stat perspective. So say that, you want, let's say you want what is essentially like blocks, right? You need blocks. Instead of attacking blocks over the whole week, what you can do is you can attack blocks early in the week and say, okay, I'm going to pick up David Savard, who isn't very useful to me for the most of the week, right? Because he plays Thursday and then Sunday. So you're going to get Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, and then not until Sunday. But what you can do is you can say, okay, I need a blocks guy. So you pick up David Savard for Monday and Tuesday. Maybe you hold him through Thursday. Then on Thursday, or whenever you want, really, you can drop him and you swap him maybe for like a Ranger player or a Boston player or a Philly player, one of these other teams that have 3 games Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Or you can pick up someone that has a Friday. You can play this a lot of ways. My point here is that you have 2 games Monday, Tuesday you can take advantage of. A lot of teams then have back-to-back, say Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Or they might have a game Wednesday and then Friday, Saturday. So you can make some moves there by dropping that Monday, Tuesday player and then getting an extra 3 starts. So now you're getting 5 starts out of that player. So you can play it a little bit smart. You don't need to necessarily pick up a person that doesn't start until Wednesday, right? Just because they have a lot of starts. Or someone that has a really big gap, which is what I was talking about with Winnipeg, is that with Winnipeg, if you pick up a Winnipeg player, you miss out on that opportunity of Monday and Tuesday. Now, what you can do with a Winnipeg player, if you want to pick up a Stastny, for example, you can pick up a Dallas player, a Detroit player, a Florida player, a Carolina player, whatever it is, get them for Monday and Tuesday, then move off of them and jump onto the Winnipeg player. That's kind of where that opportunity lies, and now you've gotten a lot more starts out of that same player. So that's what you want to be paying attention to here, is that there's a lot of maneuvering you can do with these teams where you can get a lot of late starts. So you can get those early starts Monday through Wednesday, and then Thursday through Sunday add a lot more. So that's one thing to really pay attention to with the schedule. So when we're looking at good schedules, I'm seeing, Columbus, Tampa, who has that Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday slate, really attractive. I like that a lot because you get 3 games there. Then you can move off of that and look at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you have teams that have a back-to-back, for example, Friday, Saturday, and then you can move on to a Sunday player. And effectively, you've now got 6 starts from that spot, because you've had a Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday start, then you had a Friday, Saturday start, and then you have a Sunday start. So you can be really smart about it. And of course, all of this also depends on how many streamer spots you've got. This is a lot more viable when you've got a contending team where you don't have a lot of players to drop. For example, I've got one team where really I've only got 1 or 2 streamer slots. That's kind of it. And so when I look at that perspective and I really like most of my team and I can't drop a lot of it, that's the way to max out your starts. Is instead of picking up someone that you're going to necessarily hold out for the whole week unless they really are that good, this is the way to do it. You actually get 6 starts out of this play versus 4 if you only make 1. And so that's how you've got to think about it this week, and even just going forward. And so as far as players that I'm looking at that I like, and also peripheral guys, important to mention, when you're looking at players to drop, you may have guys that are really good peripheral guys, right? Or not even really good. They might be fringe guys. They're guys that you picked up just, for blocks or picked up for hits or whatever. Definitely keep them as an option for dropping, because while sure, they might be good, at the end of the day, peripherals come down to how many games do you have. That's all it is. It's a volume play when you come down to peripherals. It's how many games of blocks can you get out of a person. And you might be able to get equal or more from someone who has more games, or you may be able to drop that person, do what I'm saying, where you pick up Monday, Tuesday, and then you also get Thursday, and then you get Friday through Sunday, and you get a lot more starts out of that play than the person you had. To say you have a decent blocker, right? Decent blocker that only plays 3 games this week, but he's decently good. You're going to get more out of swapping him out and getting potentially 6 starts or 5 starts than you would keeping that 3 block person. Of course, there's exceptions for really good blockers or really good hitters, right? But those are few and far between. For the most part, when it comes to big peripheral guys, you're really looking at starts. That's the number one thing you want to be paying attention to. So with that being said, now it's, okay, who are we looking at to actually potentially pick up? Who do I like? So one of the people that I like for this week, and this actually kind of goes against my play of what I was talking about, which is interesting, but it is something to think about for next week, and more of an early week play, is Chandler Stevenson. So he plays Monday and Wednesday and then Saturday, but I love his schedule. He has one off night on Wednesday. So they play the Sharks on Monday, Wednesday, and the Ducks on Saturday. What I do like about Chandler Stevenson is that if you have a really good team, next week, the Vegas Golden Knights have a really good schedule. So that's something to pay attention to. Next week, they have 2 off nights and also still a really easy schedule. The other team that I want to pay attention to here is the Kings. I'm going to start with just if you have a bye week, for example, or if you really think you're just going to cruise through and you're planning for next week. The Kings are a good one. They play the Ducks every single day, or not every single day, but they have 4 games against the Ducks next week. A really good matchup for the Kings. So maybe Calvin Peterson might be available to you, and you have a bye week and you can just kind of stash him and wait. So Calvin Peterson is a really good option. Your Dustin Browns, your Alex Iafallo. Those are the guys that I'd be eyeing for next week, as they have 2 off nights and they play only the Ducks. So I do like them. One of my favorite grabs of the week has got to be Mike Riley, though, from the Boston Bruins now. He's still playing top power play. He has a 2-game point streak, although I'm not sure if he got a point today. I'm not entirely positive. I believe they're playing today, or already played today, rather, and I don't think they got a point. But I do like Mike Riley a lot on Boston. He's still only 17% rostered, which is insane to me. He's shooting quite a bit. He's getting his hits as well, so he's getting you peripherals as well as points. So I definitely take a look at Mike Riley. He's probably available in a lot of your leagues. He barely got grabbed in my keeper league today. I think a lot of people don't really know that he's still top power play on Boston. He's playing 23 minutes a game, even with McAvoy back. So Mike Riley is absolutely someone to take a look at, as they only play against Buffalo players. I'm really annoyed that I used my last ad on Calvin Peterson instead of Mike Riley, because I forgot. Actually, Mike Riley was already taken. But Mike Riley would have been my last ad, and I'd absolutely be grabbing him. Even if you have a bye week this week, I would be grabbing Mike Riley to hold, as they have that great schedule against Buffalo. I do actually sneakily, especially in deeper leagues, like the Detroit Red Wings this week against the Dallas Stars. They have a really good schedule in terms of Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday. So you can, if anything, you can use them for that Monday, Tuesday. I like Adam Erne. I like the idea of Jakub Vrana. There's also the potential for Philip Hronek in there. Those are the plays that I'm looking at, because when you look at the other teams that are there, I mean, the Dallas Stars, there's not a lot to pick up from there, right? You don't have, I mean, Jason Robertson, sure, if he's still there, but if he's still there, I don't know what your league's doing if you're in the playoffs and he's still there. Jason Robertson, obviously. But then outside of that, there's not a lot, right? Hintz already really highly owned. Jamie Benn already highly owned. The defenseman already highly owned. So there's not a lot there really to take advantage of. Maybe Columbus, if you trust them against Florida. I don't know if I do. They've struggled a lot. And where do you go? Roslovic is really the only one. I like Roslovic. Or is it Roslovic? It might be Roslovic, and I was saying Roslovic before. Grammar school. Anyways, he's probably the only thing I really like there. Don't like anything defensively as either. There is something on Florida that I like. I like Nikita Gusev playing top power play right now. So Nikita Gusev is a little bit of a sneaky one. Let me look up his ownership here really quick, but he is playing top power play, playing around 17 minutes a game. He's clearly playing an offensive role, left wing, right wing, which is really helpful right now. And he got an assist, a power play assist, and he has 3 shots in both of his first games. And they're really limiting his minutes. And these are against Tampa, so this is a good sign. He plays Columbus twice here, back-to-back Monday and Tuesday. So I think Nikita Gusev is a really interesting grab, where you get that Monday and Tuesday at least if you don't want to hold on to him. So Gusev is absolutely someone not to sleep on, in my opinion, on that Florida team because of those games against Columbus. After that, it really, you have, Arizona players you could pick up against Minnesota. Likewise, you have Minnesota players you can pick up against Arizona, because they have that Monday, Wednesday, so the off night on Wednesday, and there's opportunity there. Like I said, I really like the Vegas opportunity, so even your Alex Tucks against the San Jose Sharks are something that could be helpful there. And, that's sort of it in terms of what to keep an eye out for. I could give you, I like David Savard early as well if you need blocks. I mean, David Savard up there against Carolina. I think it'll be, when you think about blocks, right, you want them against a team that shoots a lot, because that means as a defenseman, you're going to be getting in the way of, or have the possibility to get in the way of a lot of shots. And Carolina really puts that out there. So David Savard is someone that I had looked at for hits more than anything. He can also get you some blocks, but more than anything, he's a hits guy. But I do like David Savard. Occasionally, he'll get you the 2 blocks. I think against Carolina is a team that he could get you a lot of blocks. He's only gotten 2 blocks once. Had no blocks in his first 2 games with Tampa. Has 2 blocks in his last game against Florida. But I think against a team like Carolina that shoots so much, there is the opportunity for some blocks. But more than anything, what he's been delivering is those hits. So Savard is an interesting one for your peripherals that you can pay attention to. And that's one thing that, as you look at these games, and especially with Detroit, for example, one of the reasons I mentioned Erne is I did like that he had, he's playing 18, 19 minutes. Possibility of points, but that's not why I picked him up. I picked him up for his shots and hits more than anything, to get me started off right early in the week. So that's what I would say, is that with these games early on in the week, if you can't find a good offensive guy like Nikita Gusev, it's okay. There's going to be other places to find offense. I think Philly with 2 Ranger games and the Devils is a good opportunity to find offense late in the week. You've even got the Rangers, who play Philly twice, and then the Buffalo Sabres. That's a good place to find offense. You can maybe find some depth offense in Buffalo or in Boston, because you've got David Krejci scoring. You've got Craig Smith playing well if he's available. And so there's opportunities for offense, I think, later in the week. I think if I were you, I would target peripherals early, get started right on that, and then move over and chase points later. That would be my take, at least looking at the schedule and what I like later on in the week. I think there's a lot more opportunity for points later in the week than there is early in the week. I think early in the week in these games, some of them are really tight and they're really important for kind of positioning. So you got Carolina and Tampa, right? I don't know if those will be high scoring. might be really stingy. You've got Dallas and Detroit, which both teams really not great at scoring goals. Columbus is not great at scoring against Florida, but Florida is good at scoring goals. That's why I like Gusev. So anyways, long way of saying, if I were you, I would target peripherals early in the week and then points later on in the week if you take this strategy. So anyways, I hope this was helpful. It was a very different way of doing the week preview, but I do think it's important. It was important because of how important scheduling is and what it comes down to for this week. So fingers crossed that it helped. We'll be back with something either Wednesday or on the weekend. Playoffs get a little bit weird when we do suggest things. So, keep an eye out. We'll have things. Let us know maybe what you'd like to see from us during the playoffs. And then next week is the final week. We get into, we have 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. At least 2 more week previews. Maybe we have 1 more week preview. No, we have 2 more week previews. So 2 more week previews, and then that's the season. So hopefully you're all doing well. Hopefully you're all safe and well, and hopefully maybe close to getting the vaccine. This is all almost over. So I will see you soon, as will Brandon. Thanks for listening or watching.